And then, of course, the fear of rejection. If I step out of my comfort zone and I connect with my intuition, and my intuition as invites me or suggests I do something that's out of the ordinary, there's a chance that I could get rejected, right?
Sure.
So, and you know what? And you may get rejected. It's quite possible, actually, that if you're living fully and you're moving forward with every idea and opportunity that presents itself, at some point you're going to get rejected in some way, shape, or form. I think the important thing is not to reject ourselves. But so we have this fear of rejection. And one of the practices that I have, like I wake up in the morning and before I even get out of bed, I'll say to myself, my intention right now is to drop all judgment. So I'm going to drop all judgment of myself. And immediately when I say it, I just feel everything relax because it's kind of operating all in the background without us even knowing. So my intention is to drop all judgment of myself and to drop all judgment of others. And then I'm in a quiet, very calm place. And then I'll ask if I had no attachment to any outcome at all. And if I had no resistance at all, what would I do? So, and then it will be, okay, well, I'll continue working on a program, or I always get some information about what I need to go do. And immediately, as soon as we start to do things that are out of our comfort zone, self-doubt creeps in. There's another barrier. Our worries and concerns about, obviously about rejection and what other people are going to think about us. And, so judgment is a huge one. Judgment, attachment, and resistance. Those three things are really great barriers to self-love and self-fulfillment.
I was talking to this to Bob, who's in our coaching circle the other day, and we were talking about how when he was really first starting out in the consulting business, he went with some older guys, and they got basically rejected from this meeting. And as they were leaving, one of the older guys says, "It's okay, I've been thrown out of better places than this." Which set the tone for the rest of his career and being, not worrying about being rejected. But you're right. I mean, I think that's a huge one,
Yeah, I remember one time one of my teachers, he just did me the biggest favor, but it was a harsh kind of a shakeup. I was in a workshop one time, and there was 35 people there, and these were all people in my community, people I knew. And he sat right in front of me, and he did this process we were using. He did it, with a person sitting right in front of him with the whole room present. And he just looked at me right away, and he's like, I had just met him. He's like, he looked at me and he goes, "Half the people in this room don't like you." And I'm like, "That's not true." He's like, "Yeah, it is actually." And he goes, I'm like, "No, it isn't actually, because I worked really, really hard to make sure people liked me. I was the biggest kiss-ass people pleaser going. So I worked hard at this. So don't tell me that these people don't like me, because I know they do." And he's like, "No, they don't actually. Half of them don't like you." And I was going to get up and leave actually. And then he said, "Do you want me to take a poll?" And I was like, "No." Because if anyone puts their hand up, I'm just going to fall off my seat right now. And he said, "Michelle, half the people are not going to like you no matter what you do. So, he goes, if you're yourself, if you're being authentic and you're speaking your truth and you're direct and honest in your communication, there's going to be people who don't like you for being who you are, because you're honest and direct and strong and powerful. And there will be people who don't like you for that." And then he said, and there's half of the people in this room, I promise you, don't like you because you are a kiss-ass people pleaser. You're a doormat. And not only that, but the worst part of the story is that you don't like yourself because you're doing those things. And it's not who you are. And besides, no one in this room could possibly like who you really are, because no one really knows who you are, because you don't show that. And that day, the whole people-pleasing thing stopped. It's like, that's it. I am going to be myself. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to speak up. I'm going to set boundaries. I'm going to be who I am. And I'm going to, and the more I came into alignment with that, the more I really started to like myself. The more self-respect I had, the more I started to gain strength and confidence. And it was difficult. It was difficult moving from being that way to being, you know, who I was, but it was really important. And it was just such a great lesson to get, you know, that people aren't going to like it. We're so worried about people liking us and what they think. Half the people are not going to like you no matter what you do. So I just remember that every single time. So I don't worry so much about that anymore.
Thanks for sharing that. I guess I can let go of that fantasy that everybody's going to like me.
Right.
We could have helped you with that, Roger.
You already have.
Yeah, thanks. You know, I actually heard the numbers differently. I heard 1/3 of the people will feel strongly about what you had to say and won't like it, but another full third won't care one way or the other. So
Right.
the other part of rejection is that we're not hitting the radar at all. You know, you don't see me, you don't recognize me. What I have to say is, you know, absolutely not connecting at all. So it's really only a third, presumably. And like this person was sharing it with their collective experience online, and the kind, you know, which is eliciting more and more of the reactions, right? You know, we're now in a far more dynamic world of people deciding to post comments on how they feel about what we're doing.
Yeah.
And really, it's only a third of the people. If you get a third of the people who are responding positively, you have hit it out of the park. Much more baseball odds than the football odds.
Right. Good.
Does that make you feel better, Roger? 1/3. That's what you're aiming for, man.
No, I want a half.
If one of us likes it, you're doing good.
Half seems better, doesn't it?
Half of nothing is still nothing.
I was thinking with 1/3, you only need one of your co-hosts to like you any particular day, right? You can get Janet or Andrew or I, and you've nailed it, man.
Where's Andrew? Thanks, Janet.
Sorry. You know I'm not usually mean. I can't be.
You can't help yourself.
So it's not really true. Oh, Mel says, or Biggie says he loves you. He sticks up for you.
That's right.
So how does this disconnect happen?
So, you know, some of the ways I've mentioned already, you know, it starts early in childhood, right? I mean, it's if we grew up in homes where there's any kind of neglect or abuse or trauma, which we see in a lot of cases, then we disconnect and we contract. And then if children are getting the message that parts of them are not okay, you know, if I, you know, want, you know, I mean, if I'm displaying, you know, children want all the cookies, you know, we're being told we're greedy, you know, be a nice girl, the good girls don't talk like that, or behave in this way, or, you know, we're being molded and shaped into fitting in, taught to conform. The disconnect starts to happen. It's just that we're not really being able to express who we are. And the further, you know, and then of course, as I mentioned too, going to school, could be kids in school, there's cliques, we want to fit in, you know, we maybe have some, if there was bullying at school, you know, then we don't feel so good about ourselves. And even as adults, I mean, here's an interesting thing that I see a lot and I hear a lot. We're making a decision to do something in our life, and I'll hear people say, I knew it in my gut that I shouldn't have done it, and I did it anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So right there is the disconnect. And then it's like we're driving along, we're going in the right direction, and all of a sudden we get this signal, and we're going to take a left turn, and there's this knowing, it's like, no, don't turn left. Keep going straight. And we turn left anyway. And then we keep going, and we keep going, and we keep going, and we keep going, right? And then the further away you get, the more anxious you get, the more depressed you get, the more fearful you get, the more, because you just, the further away from your true self that you get, the more pain it causes. So it's a matter now of like, how do I turn around and come back? How do we get back home? And this is what I'm saying when I said there's a real longing now, because I think people are knowing it's like we're so far away from who we are. One of the examples I'll give is like, I think, you know, I grew up in a home where there was there was a lot of abuse. My father was an alcoholic, and there was, trauma and abuse and neglect. And as a teenager, I was really struggling with knowing who I was. I mean, it couldn't be any further away from, the confidence or knowing who I was. And as a young adult, I made a conscious decision that if I, got a good enough job and made enough money, that was going to be my salvation. And so I established myself in a fairly high profile career at an early age. And, at 24 years old, I was an equities trader at a financial services company. And I did that for 6 years, and everything that I thought was going to make me happy started to come into alignment. Like I lived in a nice area. I was getting around with the right people. The things were starting to come into, the material stuff was starting to come. And I was so unhappy. And I couldn't figure it out. It's like, okay, do I just need more? Do I need to work harder? Do I need to make more money? Do I need to get more education? It was always about, how much more can I do so that I can feel better about who I am? Until one day I just really got it, that there's something wrong with the whole picture. This has nothing to do with me. And so then it was, like I had taken the turn down the wrong road, and now it's like I was turning around and starting to come back. And it was a gradual process of one step at a time, one decision at a time, just consistently keep moving, and then you get more grounded. You start to feel better. You start to have more confidence. You start to experience more fulfillment. And there is, people now are looking for trying to find the way back. It's like, how do I turn around now? How do I get from, this place of disconnect back to an experience that is more fulfilling and meaningful, and so that I can contribute in a greater way as well. So the 10 steps that we went through are the beginning of that process.
Would you say that you were a narcissist, like that guy Jordan, what was his name, Belfort, that the movie about?
Like the Wolf of Wall Street?
Yeah, because Bryn, that's like the epitome of a narcissist. I don't know. Did you see it?
Yeah, I did actually.
Bryn,
yeah,
borrowed the Coke lunch and turned it off.
Oh no!
Yeah, that was gross, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, I mean, I wasn't that bad, but I saw lots of that go down, honestly. And I'm not going to say that I wasn't kind of aligned with it, but I can honestly say that if I didn't wake up when I did, like what happened to me actually when I was 29 years old, I had a really profound, a mystical experience that took me out of my programming and conditioning into my authentic self. And I was in a state of illumination for about a year. So if that hadn't happened, I'm absolutely, probably would have ended up quite like some of and that's when I left that career, and I went from being a stockbroker to a yoga teacher.
See, she's more Jerry Maguire than Wolf of Wall Street. I like.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, come on. Jeez.
So Michelle, how do you, or what is it that you do in your daily life that supports your self-love? I mean, and give us other things that we can do as well, besides these 10 steps. I mean,
right. So honestly, I really do think that the first thing is knowing what's most important to you and really getting clear about what your values are. And then everything that you do, I mean, honestly, everything, like you can, I will set a really clear intention for myself. Like say if I wanted to make sure, I mean, I take really good care of my body. I'm not perfect, and I'm not, I mean, it's not that there's no room for getting out of line, but my health is priority number one for me. So I take good care of my health. I practice yoga. I do meditate. I process emotional stuff as it comes up. I have tools that I use that I teach people to help process emotional things. I'm really committed to just being present with whatever's going on. When I am making decisions, I check in and just ask, is this for my highest good? When I do ask that, I'm more likely to make the choices and decisions that are for my greatest good. And when I don't, it's not to say that I never, I do things, I kind of get busy and I forget some of the tools and I do things mindlessly and then have to back up again for sure. But when I'm being conscious of it and I'm being aware, I'm asking the question, like even in my health, what would be for my greatest good? There may be, I might not feel like exercising, and then I'll think, well, is it for my greatest good to not do it? And it's like, well, no, it's my, if I'm really focused on my greatest good, I would go and do that. And then I'll go and do it. I just won't even question it. I will go and do it. And then even just looking at any area of your life, like you can look even at, like pushing our edge. I'm a bit of an introvert. No, I'm not a bit of an introvert. I'm a total introvert and a bit of a homebody. So one of the things that I did recently was I signed up for an improv class because it's as far away from and it's teaching me how to be more spontaneous and how to connect with people and have fun. I really enjoyed that. I'm making a conscious. It's being more aware of the decisions that you make and why you're making them, instead of just being, because like I said, if we're not being conscious, we'll just continue to repeat the same patterns and behaviors that we've been engaged in all along, which are part of our programming and conditioning. So we actually need to be conscious and aware. I think meditation is really important because it gives us that initial separation from identification with our thinking and our programming and conditioning. It's asking. I use a tool called the Life Wheel in coaching, and I would encourage people to get really clear what's most important to them in every single area, and then pick one.
What's a life wheel? Tell us about that.
Right. So it's just taking a look at all the different areas of your life, right? So it's a pie, but it's in 8 pieces. So there's career, finances, family and friends, primary relationship, our spiritual development, mental development, physical and emotional health, fun and relaxation. And what I do when I'm working with people as a coach, the very first thing I do is I ask them to rate their level of satisfaction in each of those areas on a scale of 1 to 10. And it's a quick snapshot of where you're at in your life. And so if you see one of those areas is low, then you can ask, well, what's going on here? And what is it I need to do to, what's important to me here? What am I doing that's causing this area to not be so satisfying? What actions and what things can I put in place that would allow me to move in the direction of my greatest good in this area? So you can bring a little bit more focus, set some goals that help you make conscious choices to do things differently, to connect with your intuition and ask, what is for my greatest good right now? And then having the courage to act on it. And every single time you make a decision like that, like when you really connect with your heart and your intuition and you ask, what is it that I need to do? When you take the step, like having the insight about anything is really just the first step, and the knowing about it's like, okay, yeah, that's what I need to do. When you act on it, that's how transformation happens. And every single time you do that, you gain strength, you gain courage, you gain traction, you gain a stronger sense of who you are. You actually strengthen your soul by doing that. And so if I could, suggest just one thing, it's that. It's really just learn to tune in and ask, what's for my greatest good here? And, or how can I, if I was moving in the direction of my highest potential, what action would I take? And the second you ask the question, you'll get an answer. You will know what it is you need to do. And whether
you just have to have the courage to do what it is that you need to do.
Yes.
At that point. Mm-hmm.
And then do it. And if you do, that's how change happens.